Hello and thanks for joining me. My name is Adebayo Uluwake. At the start of this podcast on the Oyo Empire, we had mentioned that the delicate power balance in the empire was sustained by a bicameral legislature in which the Oyomesi checkmated the Alaafin's powers, while the Ogboni balanced that by checkmating the Oyomesi. The build-up to the defining Ijaye War witnessed the Ibadan generals and General Kunrumi, the Are Ona Kakanfo, both incrementally decapitating the empire by eroding the powers of Alaafin Atiba and replacing his governors over some of the various Yoruba states with their own appointees. They continued doing this even after he had died and his son Adelu had been crowned as Alaafin. Their scramble for control over cities and towns which had owed allegiance to Oyo only brought back memories of something that had transpired in the past. What was that? You may wonder. Well, it happened that several decades before them, the empire had experienced the most traumatic phase when the Basorun, that is, the prime minister of the empire, had amassed excessive power. That particular Basorun was called Gaa, who rose to prominence and fame due to his exploits as a general in the army. Consequently, he was made the Basorun by Alaafin Labisi in 1750. This titled chief systematically and surreptitiously began stripping both the Oyomesi and the Ogboni of any relevance. He was able to do this because he was feared by members of both houses. The peace and tranquility in the empire between 1650 to 1750 made it easy for Basorun Gaa to consolidate his power upon his appointment, as he was not required to go to war, which would have kept him busy and out of the empire's political space. The power of the Oyomesi to checkmate the Alaafin was usurped by the Basorun, who now single-handedly took decisions on their behalf and to which they had to submit. The acquiescence of the 6 other members and of the entire Ogboni lifted Gaa from being a primus inter pares within the house to becoming the sole administrator. He frustrated the appointment of Ajeles by the Alaafin and promoted his own family members into choice regional administrative and political positions, putting them in charge of the most commercially viable parts of the 6,600 cities that were under the direct control of the Oyo Empire. Those areas stretched from the river Niger to the north all the way to the port of Ajashe to the west. This made the Alaafin comprehensively toothless, in the same way that Are Kunrumi and the Ibadan generals had made Alaafin Atiba and his successor, Alaafin Adelu. The rise of Basorun Gaa to prominence and reckoning made the Are Ona Kakanfo weak. Some experts on the Oyo Empire believe that Gaa's appointment ensured that a general was given political power, and this could explain the resultant crisis that engulfed the political establishment upon his assumption of office. An ambitious general like Gaa had been invested with so much political resources. Gaa would, therefore, not allow consensus in the deliberations of the Oyomesi, as had previously been the practice, but often took unilateral decisions for which no other member of the council could challenge him. Another immediate result of his lust for power was the atrocious way the political stability of the empire was assailed. This occurred due to the rapid dethroning of Alaafins, whose reigns were often short and traumatic, and this being done so that Basorun Gaa's control and dominance of the socio-economic and political life of the empire could be sustained. Directly ensuring the removal of those Alaafins, of course, was the Basorun himself. Alaafin Labisi was the first to be so dethroned, followed by Alaafin Awonbioju. Alaafin Agboluaje came next, and the reason for his committing suicide under pressure from Gaa was because during a famous Oyo festival, a subordinate king who had come to rejoice with the Alaafin was considered better dressed than the Ikuba Bayeye. Knowing Gaa and his antics, Alaafin Majiogbe, who succeeded Agboluaje, did his best to avoid Gaa, but with pressure from the Basorun unabated, Agboluaje made efforts to poison the prime minister and succeeded in making him a cripple. Despite his physical incapacitation, Gaa retaliated venomously, and the Alaafin went to be with his ancestors. The end for the fearsome Basorun Gaa came during the reign of Alaafin Abiodun, who, ironically, had ascended the throne with the influence of the Basorun. The renowned Yoruba historian, the Reverend Samuel Johnson, credits Abiodun with immense wisdom and courage. Abiodun visited the Basorun virtually every day and wearied him with his gifts and visits. Eventually, Alaafin Abiodun plotted the elimination of the Basorun by several acts of intrigue, but more importantly, by restoring confidence to the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò and giving him the royal order to take out Basorun Gaa. All this unfolded in Alaafin Abiodun's very first year in office as Alaafin, when upon D-Day and HR, the capital city came under a lockdown. Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò Oyabi, whose military headquarters was at Ajase, accompanied by Alaafin Abiodun himself, led several loyal units of the imperial army drawn from garrisons from various vassal states to attack Basorun Gaa and the brigade protecting him. He and his forces were eventually overrun, and the Basorun was captured. The once feared prime minister would later be executed for treason. The antics of Basorun Gaa that had turned the Oyo Empire into a veritable dictatorship was over. It had begun because the Basorun not only usurped power, but became greedy and autocratic, imposing a nepotism of an unbelievable variety on the empire. His appointment, being a general, into the political position of Basorun was probably a mistake. In one fell swoop, it made all the Alaafins redundant and destroyed the power and relevance of the parliamentary structure of the Oyomesi and the Ogboni. Not done destroying that political structure, it went on to destroy the defense and security establishment as well, by eroding the effectiveness of the imperial army and whittling down the influence of the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. It is needless to add that doing so destroyed the command and control system of the military and its esprit de corps. This sad development, however, did not deter Alaafin Abiodun, who, after defeating Basorun Gaa, set about a massive reform process to return the empire to its lofty height by re-engineering the monarchy, rebuilding its economy and restoring confidence in the imperial army and the position of its commander-in-chief, the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. His long reign from 1774 to 1789 offered him the time with which to see his reforms to a conclusive end. With this, we have come to the end of a series on the Oyo Empire, powerhouse of Africa's Guinea Savannah Belt, and arguably the most organized and urbanized state structure in pre-colonial Africa. Power and diplomacy will continue in the next episode when we feature another great African pre-colonial state. Until then, it's bye for now.